I'm Mike Uyak. I love to try new things, and I've had culinary adventures all around the world, as well as right at home. I've had really wonderful food, as well as some really horrible food. I'd like to share some of my adventures with you, and we'll see if I have what it takes to fix whatever goes wrong. This is Recipe Redemption. Hello, ladies and gents, and welcome to this edition of Recipe Redemption. Today's taste sensation is the bologna cake. Made famous in the 2015 movie Sweet Home Alabama, but which goes back at least to the 1950s South. Rumor has it this was made as a joke, and then people said, that's actually pretty good. So I hesitated to make this because, one, I don't feel like I want to eat that, and two, I don't want to eat all of that. So it'd be a waste of ingredients. However, I realized I didn't have to make a cake with 2 pounds of bologna if I simply cut a couple of slices into eighths and then stacked them as if I had taken a wedge out of a bologna cake. And, do the cream cheese frosting that this comes with, and the Cheese Whiz, because of course Cheese Whiz. So behold, the bologna cupcake? Not really. Slice of bologna cake.
Fortunately for all involved, the bologna cake is pretty simple. I'm just layering meat with a little bit of mayonnaise between each one and stack it up about 8 to 10 layers high. You can speed this up. It's the same process. Meat, mayo, more meat, more mayo. You get the picture. I don't know why I have that one slice off to the side, but whatever. Now time to frost our bologna cake, and I'm just going to frost the convex side and the top. So I'm simulating that I've taken a slice out of a full bologna cake. This is cream cheese that was softened in the microwave and then mixed with a bit of onion and minced onion and some Worcestershire sauce. So that is what is sort of informing the flavor of this. I really don't know why I have that wedge on the side, but it seemed important. And lest we forget, the icing on this cake is spray cheese. So here we go. You need something with a radioactive orange color, or it's just not complete.
So they don't really say, they just leave it up to you to figure out how to eat this. But it's meant to be served with crackers, so it's basically, well, not really a dip, but you get the idea. It's to be eaten on crackers. Okay. So, you've had a basic bologna sandwich in your life. You know what bologna and mayonnaise taste like. Boy, this stuff's really sticky. If you're American, you probably had this countless times in your childhood, if not more recently. The addition of the cream cheese with the onion and Worcestershire sauce does add to it, as does the spray cheese, I suppose. But it's still bologna, mayo, and cheese on a cracker. So other than being a little goopy, this is not an unfamiliar flavor profile. It's just not in a form that we're used to seeing it. And it's a bit of work for what is essentially a bologna sandwich turned into an hors d'oeuvre. So, for whatever reason, you want an appetizer based on bologna, maybe you suddenly find that you have company coming over in a couple of hours and have to come up with something with what you have on hand. And you correctly don't want a bologna cake. I think I got you. What's required is an understanding of what bologna actually is. It's a sausage. Bologna is the American version of the Italian mortadella, mixture of pork or beef or both, with spices and seasoning, forced into a tube form with a large casing, and then smoked and cooked until it's set. Bologna is just a mispronunciation of Bologna, the Italian city where mortadella comes from. So, that being said, nothing prevents us from taking the slices of bologna that we have, processing them until that, well, either dicing them or processing them until they're a force meat again, and then taking it in a different direction. The big benefit of using the bologna is that it's already cooked and ready to eat, so we can actually play with generally cold ingredients and create something new without involving the stove much, if at all. Um, there are two main schools of thought, I think, for reusing bologna. You either make a spreadable schmear and or salad, I think, in a way, in the southern sense of salad, um, or making it into an entirely new force meat like a pate or terrine. I think I'm going to try both today.
So the first attempt is the bologna terrine. I've cut these slices of bologna or stacks of bologna into a little bit more manageable pieces that will actually fit into my little mini food processor here, along with some spices. Garlic powder, onion powder, a little cayenne pepper. I think I have a little parsley and a little bit of dill in there. A tiny bit of additional salt and some black pepper. And then this is some beef broth that I have added some liquid smoke and some powdered gelatin to. I've done about a half, or not, about a quarter cup. There's about a half cup of total broth. I put half of that in there just to kind of get it going so that it'll help it spin around a little better, and then incorporate the rest as it processes until it looks something like this. Yum! Then I have pre-oiled a ramekin here and actually put a strip of parchment paper across the bottom to help me in unmolding later. And I'm pouring about half of this mixture in, which is going to allow me to set some sliced olives into the center of this terrine. Give you a little extra surprise something something when you eat it. And I'm also going to add a few dollops of softened cream cheese to the center of this terrine. Again, just to give you a little variety in mouthfeel and flavor and texture when you eat a slice of this terrine. And once the cream cheese is in there, I'm going to add a few more of these sliced olives on top. I just want to make sure that you actually get some in every bite. And then pour the rest of the bologna mixture on top of that. And it might be a good idea to tap it a few times just to get any air bubbles out. Then just fold the parchment paper out of the way and cover it with plastic wrap and refrigerate for at least 2 hours. In the meantime, while that's refrigerating, let's start with the other dish. I'm going to go for kind of a twist on a classic pea salad. So I have some frozen peas that I've allowed to defrost in my mixing bowl, along with some chopped pickled onions I happen to have around because I was making some cocktails, and some chopped bologna. Now, in a typical pea salad, you have diced ham. I'm using bologna, and a little bit of cheddar cheese. it looked like, based on the volume of the bowl, 3 handfuls of cheddar cheese. Again, I'm not really measuring this sort of thing. I just kind of do by eye. And lest we forget, it's all bound together with mayonnaise. And this is a decent sized bowl of this, so I'm going to use a decent amount of mayonnaise. It ends up being about a cup for this. Um, it's going to make probably about 8 cups worth of salad, and I'm using about a cup worth of mayonnaise, which seems like a lot until you get it all mixed in. And once again, you should probably use a bigger bowl.
So, after all that, here we have a different rendition on a relatively traditional pea salad, replacing the diced ham that normally goes into it with bologna. Yeah, it's fine. I held off on adding a whole lot of salt to this because the bologna, at least the brand of bologna that I bought, was already pretty salty. But could actually use a little bit more. But the spicing comes through. I do like the pickled onion in this. It's not overpowering. It gives it just a little bit of additional crunch and that little bit of additional acid. That's really quite pleasant. Now, this is ridiculous. I fully acknowledge that making a terrine out of bologna is a lot of effort for bologna. But this is more a demonstration of the kinds of things that you can do, not necessarily the things that you should do. But it is sliceable. It is a slightly different texture from just the bologna itself. Full disclosure, when I unmolded this, and by the way, the oiling the ramekin, in addition to having the parchment paper strip across the bottom, came out no problem. I didn't need to, run the outside of the ramekin with, under hot water or anything like that in order to get this to unmold. Came out just fine. Now, the aroma was very, very bologna, but now that it's had a chance to air out for a few minutes, it's that liquid smoke that really comes through. So this is interesting. This is totally an experiment. Let's see how this goes. Okay. The bologna flavor is there, but it definitely has changed. The texture obviously is a lot lighter than the original bologna because we've thinned it out and then added gelatin. So a very different texture. Let's get in, let's say about a third of the way in. It's a little sticky, but okay, I effed it up. So here you can sort of see the cross section. Little bit of the olive has come through. A lot of not sour cream, but cream cheese. So let's just see how this sort of ersatz olive loaf with cream cheese tastes. Got a little extra olive here. There. So these green cocktail olives, there's a fruitiness to them, but they're rather assertive in flavor as well. I don't know that it was the best choice. but I was kind of going for sort of a mid-century modern kind of aesthetic. Um, so since people put olives on everything back then in order to make them fancy, I kind of ended up doing that too. I think I would go lighter, maybe actually chop up the olives so it's a thinner layer, where you get a little bit in every slice, but not a whole lot. Um, Another thing that you can actually do with this, well, put it into a smaller ramekin than I had. I didn't have a really small one, but um, another thing that you can do, put it in the fridge, let it kind of set for a while, and then make more of the aspic um, beef or pork stock with some sort of gelatin aspic, and actually pour another cool layer of that on top of the terrine once it's set a little bit, so that you get that additional layer of aspic gel on top for visual appeal. For a lot of terrines and like pate, you'll often see that aspic on top, and it's considered by some to be a sign of quality. Um, Whether you do or not is another question, but it's an idea. So these are just, well, pea salad, this is pretty standard stuff, nothing really surprising there. But doing a terrine with bologna, it is more of an experiment. Obviously, this is a bit of work for bologna. Um, but it gives you an idea of what you can do, particularly if the bologna cake is the only thing that the only idea that you have in your mind. There are other directions um, that you can take bologna to bring to a potluck dinner or something. Um, Besides just the bologna cake, I know that it's become sort of a southern classic, but honestly, if you've never actually had it before, I can't really recommend it. There's nothing really special about the flavor profile. It's the flavor of a bologna sandwich from your childhood, but with extra mayo because you've got mayonnaise in between each one of those layers. You get a lot of mayo in every bite, and that's great. If you like mayonnaise, great, but that's a lot of mayo. So there are other things that you can do that are, arguably a little healthier and just, I think, overall more pleasing, um, if you use your imagination. So, what other ideas do you have? Share them in the comments down below. And as always, if you have any other ideas for things that I should try, be sure to leave those in the comments or contact me in some way and let me know what other things I should be doing. So, with that, I'd like to thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time here on Recipe Redemption. Bye now.